Open up the door.
Howdy y'all, it's Curious Raven. It is day 12 of Octoberspook. We only have one more day to go, and tomorrow is Halloween. This story is by Wordmule, and it is called Behind the Curtain. I always considered myself lucky that my parents let me do whatever I wanted with my room. They thought it was important for my space to be mine. My only responsibility was to keep it somewhat organized. But if I wanted to draw on the walls, sure, go ahead. If I wanted to rearrange it every week, no problem. My dad was military, so we moved around a lot. I must have had dozens of rooms growing up, each one unique. Not all of them were to my liking, but my favorite was in an apartment above a restaurant. The room was massive, with a great view of the river and the restaurant patio. Best of all, there was a big walk-in closet. It was so big I sometimes slept in there. It felt like my own secret hideout. Even now, I wish I had that room. I'd probably still sleep in the closet just for the nostalgia. My least favorite room, though, was in a farmhouse we rented in Nevada. It belonged to some weirdo landlord who always seemed too friendly. He had this big plastic smile, and he was thin in a sickly way, like Reverend Kane from Poltergeist 2. God, that guy freaked me out. But honestly, the landlord wasn't even the worst part about living there. The house itself was terrifying, on the verge of collapse. Holes in the ceilings, rats scurrying inside the walls, old water pipes groaning and clanking in the night. We wouldn't have been surprised if the rats were kicking up asbestos and poisoning us all. Oh, and bats. They'd fly out of the ceiling holes sometimes and terrorize us in the middle of the night. To this day, I'm still scared of bats. But even that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the upstairs room. My room. It was small, barely big enough for my things, but my parents helped me make it work. There was a window with a view of the farm and the landlord's house. I had no desire to look at it, so I always kept the blind shut. The room had one of those crawl spaces in the wall, the kind you open to access insulation or store things. I hated it. It reminded me of Coraline, a movie that terrified me as a kid, even though I still love it. I couldn't shake the thought of some creature crawling out at that little door. My dad, sensing my unease, nailed a piece of wood over it and hung a black curtain to hide it from view. That was enough to ease my fears, at least for a while. One afternoon, while my parents were out shopping, I was alone in the house. I stayed in my room, as the rest of the place always felt even creepier when I was by myself. I was sitting at my desk, drawing by the window, when I heard a faint scratching noise. I brushed it off as usual rats in the walls, as I'd gotten used to hearing them scurry about. But the sound persisted. It was rhythmic, deliberate, 3 quick scratches at a time. The more I ignored it, the louder it became. Annoyed, I turned down my CD player and yelled, "Hey, knock it off!" As soon as the words left my mouth, there was a loud bang, like something had slammed into the wall. The whole room shook. My heart leapt into my throat. I spun around in my chair, scanning the room. The sound seemed to have come from behind the curtain, the crawl space door. I stared at it, my skin crawling. Then the scratching started again, only this time it didn't stop. The sound grew louder, more frantic. I bolted out of the room and ran outside to sit on the porch. I didn't go back in until my parents returned. When they got home, I told them what happened. To my relief, they said they'd already decided we were moving soon. The house was too unsafe to stay in it much longer. For the last 2 weeks there, I refused to sleep in my room. I stayed with my parents, too scared to even go upstairs. On moving day, my dad took down the curtain and removed the wood that covered the crawlspace door. Before we left, I decided to take one last look. I don't know why. I guess part of me needed to see for myself that there was nothing to fear. I pulled open the door to the crawlspace. What I saw, inside still haunts me to this day. Scratches. Dozens of deep, jagged scratches carved into the wood from the inside, like someone with only 3 fingernails had clawed at the door in desperation. And in the middle of it all, clearly etched into the wood, were 3 chilling words. I see you. Ew, y'all, that one gave me chills. That one gave me chills. I am going to read another one from Wordmule because these are pretty short. It's called The Waving Man. I usually take my dog, Milla, for walks early in the morning before work. My routine is simple. Wake up at 5:30, pack Milla in the car, and drive out to one of my many trails near my home. One morning, I decided to switch it up and try a new trail a coworker had told me about. It followed a river and was one of the few places where dogs could roam off leash. When I pulled into the parking lot, it was empty. Not a single car. That was fine by me. Less chance of running into irresponsible dog owners. The trail was beautiful. Thick forest surrounded us, and a roar of the river drowned out everything else. Mila was having the time of her life, darting ahead and sniffing everything. About 15 minutes into the walk, something on the opposite side of the river caught my attention. A man was standing there, not far from the water's edge. He was waving, but not in a way that suggested he needed help. His arms moved slowly side to side, like he was signaling something. Then his hands dropped lower, and he started moving them up and down, almost like he was trying to imitate a bird flapping its wings. It was strange. Not frantic, not desperate, just slow and deliberate. I squinted, trying to make out more details. He wore a faded gray shirt and baggy brown pants, the kind that looked worn out from years of use. His posture was rigid, and although I couldn't see his face clearly from the distance, I got the sense he was staring directly at me. I called out, "Do you need any help?" The river's roar swallowed my voice and made no indication that he'd heard me. His arms kept moving the same eerie rhythm, side to side, up and down. Something about the whole scene felt off, but I told myself it was probably nothing. I decided to keep walking, knowing that the trail looped around and I'd eventually be on the same side of the river as him. Mila and I crossed the bridge, looping back towards where the man had been. As I got closer, I saw the same figure, same gray shirt, same brown pants, standing on the riverbank. But now he wasn't moving. He stood completely still, facing the water, in the same awkward pose I had seen him earlier. "Good morning," I called out, trying to sound casual. I was feeling anything but. No response. He didn't flinch. Mila suddenly started barking like crazy, her fur bristling. She had been calm the entire walk, but now she was absolutely freaking out. That's when I decided to get closer, to figure out what was going on. As I approached, my stomach tightened. What had I thought was a man was actually a mannequin, dressed in the same clothes. Same gray shirt, same brown pants, but no face. Just a blank plastic figure standing motionless by the river. Mila kept barking, her attention now drawn to the trees nearby, as if she sensed something I couldn't see. Deep, unsettling feeling washed over me. My instinct screamed at me to leave, and so I turned and jogged back to the trail, not daring to look back. On the drive home, I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a prank, but who would set up a mannequin in the woods this early, just waiting for someone to come along? And why did its pose mimic the exact same movements I had seen from across the river? The more I think about it, the more unsettling it becomes. I've never been back to that trail since. Ooh, these were 2 scary, spooky stories. Gave me chills. I love y'all so much. Tomorrow is the last one. I will probably, I don't know what time I'm going to post it tomorrow at some point. I am going to make it tomorrow and post it. But I will see y'all tomorrow. Until then, remember it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.